Hello and welcome to the Complete Analyst. This video is designed to give you a good working definition for operating model vision. It's part of our What Is series, defining common terms that many analysts need to work with every day. Perhaps one of these is you. Now, I'm not claiming that this is the only correct definition you can use, but perhaps this one might make your life as an analyst just a little bit easier. So, what is an operating model vision, and why should you care? If you have seen some of our other videos, you already may have a pretty good idea because it just joins two other existing concepts. You can also tell just by looking at the term that this is something you're likely to encounter early on in the life cycle of an enterprise change initiative, particularly if the scope of that initiative is to make a major change to how the enterprise as a whole will function. Usually, but not always, this will be described as some kind of business transformation or digital transformation sponsored at the senior executive or board level. In that case, you'll either be building or trying to understand the vision of what that new transformed enterprise will look like. So let's see if I can provide a good operating definition that might help you. As you can see here, the definition of operating model vision is a straightforward combination of two things. Our video on operating model explained that it must cover the full stack from business down to the physical level you see here on the left. In that video, I also pointed out that the term operating model wasn't enough to cover its different representations over time. One of these representations is a vision, or first sketch, of what that target operating model might look like. So let's explore this concept a bit further. But before we get too far, I just want to point out that we will be borrowing several concepts from standard enterprise architecture practice. But also be assured that you don't need to be a full-on enterprise architect to make use of these ideas. As you can see, the TOGAF method for enterprise architects defines a Phase A architecture vision to generally precede the more detailed architecture definition phases B, C, and D. TOGAF refers to the vision as essentially the architect's elevator pitch. So please see the video notes for more details on that. If you think about it, this definition of an architecture vision in TOGAF sounds a whole lot like an operating model vision, which then leads to a much more detailed operating model architecture to follow. Like the TOGAF architecture vision, the operating model vision is also an elevator pitch for the new operating model that we want to build. I'd like to take a brief peek forward into architecture for a moment, if you don't mind. So what about that operating model architecture that will follow the vision? If you consider this definition of enterprise architecture domains and components from the Archimate 3.1 standard you see here, I think you'll see that an operating model architecture isn't really significantly different from what many practitioners and standards call an enterprise architecture. Maybe you might want to stop this video for a moment and have a closer look. Using the standard approach presents a significant opportunity to leverage established architecture practices to define a target operating model. Put another way, we don't have to reinvent existing concepts. Look for links in our video notes for more details, but I'll leave it there for now. So now let's get back to the operating model vision. You may remember from another video linked below that a vision typically follows a definition of strategy and then precedes the creation of a more detailed architecture. As you can see from this example, the vision is a first sketch of the architecture. So how might this look for an operating model vision as opposed to a house? Well, here's a first cut of how that might look, and I'll admit it doesn't look very impressive. But there are a few things going on here. First, since the operating model needs to represent the full stack from the business down, the vision should do likewise, but just at a lower resolution. Second, don't try to include too much. It may make sense to leave things out that could distract from the key messages you're trying to deliver. Keep in mind that defining a vision is primarily an act of visual communication, and the concerns of your stakeholders should be the driving factor. But maybe we can do just a little bit better than this. So here's a second attempt at our vision sketch in a slightly more human-friendly format. You can see that the general shape of it is similar to the first drawing, but it's packaged in a way that's likely more appropriate for the various audiences, senior and otherwise, that need to understand the vision. This can be tricky, and you will likely need several iterations to arrive at a vision sketch that does the job. But also keep in mind that, again, your vision is a first sketch of the architecture, and you really don't want to get too far separated from that fundamental idea. Getting this right takes practice and a keen sense of your stakeholders, their concerns, and the communication styles they prefer. So don't be afraid to spend the time you need to get everyone on board. So if you put all this together in a sequence, you may get something like this. First, you worked out an operating model strategy from a set of alternative patterns, and see the links in the video notes for more on this. Second, you defined and iterated a vision with your stakeholders that represents that first sketch of the architecture. And third, you elaborate that vision in much more detail when developing the operating model architecture in your subsequent work. You can see from this that creating the vision is squarely in the middle of this process. So be prepared to revisit this several times as you work all this out with your stakeholders. To sum up, an operating model vision combines the concept of operating model and vision in order to provide a compelling first sketch of the target operating model. The vision you create here should follow from the strategy defined previously and then flow naturally to the more detailed architecture to follow. But this won't always be a straight line. Be prepared to iterate several times to get it right. I hope you have found this video to be useful for you. Look in the links below for other related videos that explore this and other adjacent topics. Thanks for watching.